Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios. This is episode number 76 of the UCF Knightline podcast. I'm joined in studio by
Trylko. Hello, everyone.
Well, Trace, all is good in the world at this point today. So far, we're watching a little Olympics on the screens here in the studio. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, so...
Your two monitors, just so folks can picture this. He's got the women's weightlifting on one monitor.
If you've ever seen those girls.
And then the ladies are diving on the other monitor. So it's really a study in contrast.
It's definitely contrast. It's funny, though. It's a good contrast.
Less than 3 weeks away until college football is back for UCF.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Media Day is coming up on Wednesday, and then shortly thereafter, either Wednesday or Thursday, or maybe even the weekend, I'm going to try to get our special overtime that we do for Media Day on football. Hopefully it'll be out Wednesday night. That's my plan. Took the night off of work, so we're going to get that going.
I don't know what has happened to this weightlifter, but they're peeling her off the floor here. This is not good for her.
It's not good.
Yeah.
An Egyptian. She's not walking very well, so not walking like an Egyptian. All right, so back to where was I? Where were we at there? I'm not going to edit this. We're going to do this live.
They're going to get to see our faces for the YouTube special.
Speaking of live, we've also got that coming up on the 4th, the night after the first UCF game, September 4th. Will be live UCF Knightline podcast on Facebook. That's where we're going to do it. We're going to do our first one live on Facebook. So if you haven't liked our Facebook page on there, UCF Knightline Podcast, do that, please, and make sure you get our alerts and all that stuff for when we're going to do live shows and everything else. I post a lot of stuff on there. Please do that so we can reach you. And we'll also do that live show on the 4th it will be at 7 p.m., so it's going to be on Facebook and Rabble.tv.
Yeah, and you know what? In just a few moments, we've got a pretty good interview coming up with CBSSports.com's Dennis Dodd. Folks are no doubt familiar with him. He has got a column out on Scott Frost and UCF. It's generating a lot of clicks. What does he think of UCF's prospects for the Big 12? He is going to talk to us just ahead.
And it was quite nice of him to do that. I just reached out to him, and he said, sure. So, wow. Okay, Dennis Dodd, that's awesome. So I was very, very happy to do that interview. I like that guy. He says interesting things sometimes, not always in favor of UCF, but this article and this interview, is a good thing, so...
Yeah, he certainly was positive. It's interesting to get his take in the midst of all of the Big 12 drama that is swirling around.
And then I did the interview the night before this information came out about the 18 or 17, now 18, people. So that was not schools. That was not available information at that point. So
I don't think he needs to know that New Mexico is interested, or San Diego State. I think he knows who the.
So let's just talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
Air Force now has put their foot into it. New Mexico State, Colorado State.
Yeah, Colorado State. Every American school
except Navy
and Tulsa.
Oh, Tulsa hasn't, huh? That's interesting. No. And then Army, I think, I saw Army's name in there someplace. Yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked if Navy changes their mind on that. I think, and somebody else said this, I don't remember who, but if, obviously a couple teams are probably going to come from the American, I think the American should take on Army and bring them into the conference, so the Army-Navy game would be a conference game. That would be pretty cool.
That would be interesting.
So, and maybe even bring over Air Force and have all the academies in
the American.
Yeah,
that after
sounds,
UCF's left.
Yeah, whatever. But I know Air Force for a few years there was a pretty good team. The rest of them, normally aren't so great. Anyway, yeah, Boise State, of course, is wanting to get maybe into the Big 12. I can't remember.
San Diego State.
San Diego State, of course.
Again, New Mexico is an odd one. They're just, again, every American school, Tulane in that. And
so
it's just hard to believe that it's more than 6 or 7 that are under serious consideration,
right.
really.
And they've probably already made their mind up, to be honest with you. And I know that I have heard that UCF has already made their impression on them. They've already done it. They did it by teleconference, so they've already done that. Their presentation has been given to the Big 12, so now come on, Big 12, just let's do it and get it done, so we don't speculate and talk any more about this, because it's not my favorite subject, to be honest with you.
But it seems like it's going to continue for at least a couple of more weeks of conversation.
Let's get it over with and let's move on, and we'll play where we have to play, or we'll look forward to playing someplace else. So,
well, let's talk a little bit of football. We're going to have a preview of the Knights' season and a little Big 12 talk with UCF alum Tom James, who's part of a syndicated college football show, Southern Pigskin Tonight. He'll be joining us, but let's talk football. Coach Frost gave the Knights off Sunday after having his second set of two-a-days on Saturday. What are your thoughts after a week or so of camp?
Well, I think that they've pretty much gotten through it without injury except for one. I believe Brian Brown, defensive back, freshman, I believe that he was going to redshirt anyway, but I also have heard that he tore his ACL and meniscus, so that's not good. But besides that, I haven't heard of any other injuries. We're not allowed to see anything, so there's not a lot for us to know, but, from what we're hearing, it seems to be positive things that, they're getting there, blah, blah, blah. It's the same stuff that we hear all the time. I mean, they're not even telling us anything new. Maybe on Media Day we'll get to go out there and see a little bit more, but UCF is putting up clips on Facebook all the time and seeing the play of the day and all that stuff. So some things are looking good. Now, if that translates to the field, things looked good really last year when they did that stuff too, so we'll see, I guess. But we have some sound from Scott Frost, and we can play that. Let's hear what Scott Frost has to say about this.
Our players gave us absolutely everything they had for 5 practices. We wanted them to recover and get right. We got 5 more here between 2 two-a-days and a 1-a-day. Then we'll give them another day off, and we're building them into this slowly. We got a lot of time before our first game in September, so we're trying to do it the right way. I think they've exceeded my expectations. We didn't take a step back after spring at all. We looked like a different team when we came out here for fall. Guys are more familiar with what they're doing. We're in better shape. We're stronger. We're faster. I've been pleased with how it looks. Well, we told them competition was open at every position, and guys have been stepping up and competing, but they're competing like brothers. Everybody's still pulling for each other, and we're one team, one unit in there, and there's some great competition. I think the position battles will shake out, but I love how our guys are approaching it. It's not me against him, it's me with him, and we need to keep it that way.
How's the offensive line been progressing? I know in the spring you said that was the area that maybe made the biggest jump because they had the longest way to go when things started. Just looking at where things are now, is that unit coming along a little bit better?
Yeah, we're more physical up front right now. Obviously it helps that they know what they're doing a little better, but our guys got a lot stronger in the offseason. Coach Duvall did a great job. They're starting to move people and work as a unit, so I feel good about where we are right now.
Troy Walters was very complimentary yesterday, a freshman running back, Juwan Hamilton, just some of the natural things he does with instinct and cutting. What are your impressions, I guess, after 6 days seeing Juwan Hamilton out there?
Yeah, Juwan's opened some eyes, I think, in the first few practices. We got a bunch of backs I feel good about. Don Travius has done good things. Taj has done good things. Adrian Killens is doing good things. But Juwan's definitely had a good first 6 practices.
So there you go. That's a little bit more than we've heard otherwise, and it seems like that everybody's kind of happy about Juwan Hamilton, number 1. He's got the number 1 jersey, which George O'Leary would not let anybody have. So a running back with the number 1 jersey. I think that's going to be interesting. If he can, get things going, and then Adrian Killens and him are the 2 that are supposed to be, that 1-2 punch. When we talked to Juwan Hamilton, and Adrian Killens, they both said that. And, I'm looking forward to seeing those two guys because those guys are different backs than we've had here before.
Speedsters.
Also, one of the things that I liked that Scott Frost said in there when actually I left Brandon's questions in there so you could hear what the context was. Brandon asked about the offensive line, and Scott Frost seems to think the offensive line is coming together. So that's great news because that has been the nemesis of our offense for the last couple of years. So, and they're gonna be huge. Everybody that talks about UCF talks about the offensive line, and especially with this offense, the offensive line has to do their job and very well.
As the O-line goes, so may go the O.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Our countdown to the night's season opening game against South Carolina State continues now. UCF alum Tom James is a freelance play-by-play man for the ESPN family of networks, including work with ESPN's Wide World of Sports here in Orlando. Additionally, Tom hosts and produces sports documentaries and is a part of the weekly syndicated college football radio show Southern Pigskin Tonight. Thanks for joining us again this year, Tom.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be with you guys, and I'm excited for college football just a couple of weeks away finally.
Yeah, UCF's home opener less than 3 weeks away. UCF coming off the 0-12 season. Tom, it certainly cannot get much worse than that. What's your thoughts on the 2016 Knights?
Well, it's certainly going to look a heck of a lot different than it ever has, really, in Orlando for UCF. I think Scott Frost's offense is going to be fun to watch. I would like to ask UCF supporters to be patient. This is a big change. There's a lot of moving parts here. So while it will be exciting once his system is fully in place, and that could take a couple of years, let's be patient. Let that happen because there's certainly a lot of guys on the roster who have not played the up-tempo type of system that Coach Frost is putting in.
Yeah, let's talk more about that system. From your observation, where does it excel the most, and how do you think UCF can most quickly adapt to it?
You know, it's a lot of skill position stuff. Those guys are, they're going to be, the pressure is on those guys for sure. I think the line, though, offensively anyways, the offensive line is really going to have to give time to the quarterback in those read options and those kinds of things, and we'll see how quickly those guys adjust.
Defensively as well, what do you expect from the Knights, and what's the pressure points that come with this type of changeover in both the offensive and defensive philosophies?
The defense has got to show us a little bit more than they did last year in terms of big plays. These guys, there was a lot expected of the defense last year, and we really didn't see these guys making a lot of big plays last year. When you cannot allow 38 points a game and expect to compete for an AAC title, there's just no way. I already know that the system is going to be a little bit different this year on defense. It's going to be a 3-4 base, and for so long, UCF's core base setup has been a 4-3. So that's going to be new, and because of that, you're going to have guys that are learning new positions. So, that learning curve is going to be there, but they've really got to have a better nose for the ball, and they've got to make turnovers, and really make plays to give the offense the football back a heck of a lot more than they did last year.
Well, with that 3-4 defense coming in, that should allow to get some linebackers in on the quarterback a little bit more. What do you think that's going to do for the run stopping? Because we, in the past, have been a run stopping defense, but I guess the last couple of years it's been pretty porous. But do you think that that's going to help with run stopping, or do you think that's going to hurt? It's going to change what the UCF defense looks like?
It's definitely going to change what it looks like. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the back end, on the linebackers, on the DBs, especially the linebackers, to keep an eye on what the play is coming up when you've got that one less down lineman. So, we'll see if they can adjust and how quickly they can adjust to that.
They're one of the deepest groups of all the people, especially the defensive backs. So that should be interesting. There's definitely, a lot of leadership there for the team in general, with the older guys being back there in the backfield. And I believe there's some real winners back there. So I hope that they can get it going a lot better than it was last year.
Definitely. I mean, we're already hearing after the first week of camp that all of these guys, we know there's talent. O'Leary recruited a lot of talent. I mean, in fact, before the 0-12 season, they won 31 games combined the 3 previous seasons before that. But what I think we're hearing from Scott Frost's guys after the first week, and the people that have gotten a look at them, is that they're already fitter. They're already faster, stronger, a lot leaner. What does that sound like? That sounds like Oregon to me. But there seems to be a team bond and a little bit of chemistry that's coming out of that. So, hopefully these guys will be ready to play in a little bit of a new style come September 3rd and beyond.
Earlier you mentioned the word patience. September starts off with South Carolina State at home, trip to the Big House in Michigan, return home for Maryland, then a game at FIU. What kind of record do you see out of those 4 games? What's the cause for concern for UCF record-wise after the first 4 games?
I look at this as 0-12 was an anomaly. I mean, that was not a team that was as bad as most 0-12 teams that you're going to see. For me, 500 in the out-of-conference schedule is realistic and it's doable. Let's just say, let's just mark it down right now. Let's assume they beat South Carolina State, lose to Michigan and Maryland, and then win their 4th game against FIU and go 2-2 as they head into the AAC. And then from there, maybe you've got a little bit of momentum coming out. You're not going to lose to FIU 2 straight years. I just don't see that happening. So after that, a 500 run in conference, I think, is more than realistic. It really is. And if you catch a little lightning in a bottle, it could be better than that. Now, I know that the senior linebacker, Dominic Spencer, has been out there already predicting that they win the AAC conference this year. Okay. And I think that I love the enthusiasm. I think, I'd pat Dominic on the head and say, hey, this is the kind of excitement we need in the Scott Frost era, but let's tap the brakes just a little bit on that in this first year. 500 is a legitimate and doable thing, I think, this year for UCF.
Of course, the drama that surrounds the Big 12 is also a storyline as we head into the opening of the regular season. What's the latest from you? What are you hearing? What's your perspective on this? 18 schools apparently interested, thrown their names into the ring to get into the Big 12. What's your assessment of UCF?
I just have one request for the Big 12 Conference, and that is to please be forward-thinking in this process. They are definitely doing their due diligence, there's no question. But the Big 12, if you think about this, has the opportunity to join the ACC as the only other one of the Power 5 conferences to have 2 Florida schools in the conference. They already own the state of Texas. If they can have 2 schools out of the state of Florida, that sounds pretty good in terms of their footprint to me. I mean, you think there's any good high school football in the state of Florida? We're talking about 2 of the 3 biggest high school football states in America, Texas, Florida, and California. Orlando and Tampa are markets of the future. With schools on the rise, growing schools, especially UCF in college football. So, I think it really behooves the Big 12 to take at least one of the 2. This is kind of what I would anticipate. And what we're hearing is that if there's going to be expansion, it's now more likely to be just 2 more teams to make it an actual Big 12 conference, believe it or not, instead of the 4 teams that we had potentially been hearing about. If I could look into the crystal ball a little bit, I think I would anticipate UCF and BYU getting the bids. If the Big 12 is smart, that would leave USF out of it. Now, if that happens, let's just say that happens, if USF stays out and is left out, what happens to the war on I-4? That could have a scenario where UCF plays 2 or 3 early out-of-conference games, and then they finish with USF. Or USF could get moved to an early season game if they're not, in the same conference together. But we have already seen where great rivalries because of conference realignment have gone away. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, A&M. So there may or may not be room. If that scenario, if the UCF BYU scenario plays out, there may not be room on the schedule right now for USF, or perhaps it moves to earlier in the season. That's how I see it. If I'm the Big 12, I would certainly love to entertain 2 Florida teams into the conference. I think that would be great. But realistically, BYU is certainly a very attractive team to have in there. So if you're only picking one of the 2 Florida schools, UCF is the one with the highest ceiling.
Boy, and as you just said earlier, there's a lot of high school talent in the state of Florida, and can you even imagine the college football scene to have UCF up in there with Florida State, Miami, and Florida in that recruiting battle? Would be a lot of fun. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Tom's Sunshine State College Football Preview column will be up this month on his website, TomJamesLive.com. How else can folks follow you, Tom?
Yeah, TomJamesLive.com. I appreciate the plug on that. Also on Twitter at TomJamesLive. And, I'll be doing a weekly college football show throughout the year. We do this 365 days a year, 52 weeks a year, called Southern Pigskin Tonight. And that airs in 10 markets, including Orlando and Tampa in 3 states, Thursdays at 5 o'clock. So check that out as well.
Sounds good, and we look forward to joining you sometime to talk UCF on Southern Pigskin Tonight. Tom James, always good to talk with you. Go Knights!
All right, well, that was Tom James. And, there's also some news. The Knights announced a home-and-home with North Carolina. In 2018, we're going there to Chapel Hill, and in 2020, they'll come here to Orlando.
We hope.
Yeah, I mean, it may not. That could all change.
Stanford is supposed to come here. Remember, we were there last year, and there's already some chatter that the game at Texas may either be rescheduled or canceled next year. So those schedules that are booked out several years are subject to change.
Yeah, it might wind up being a conference game.
Yeah, I like that. I like the sound of that.
If we get into the Big 12, this stuff isn't going to matter because, we're going to have that quality of opponent every single week.
Yeah, good point.
So we're not going to worry about getting Power 5 opponents. It's not going to matter anymore because they'll all be Power 5 opponent. Scott Frost was asked what he thought about that in his press conference. I did not leave that in that little clip that I played, but he said he basically doesn't care. That's 2018. He's got 2016 to play for. And I'm sure that we will play anybody and we should be able to beat anybody or something like that he said. So I like that. He's not looking into the future. He's just looking at what he has to do now.
I think it's an attractive opponent to come to UCF, though, in a couple of years.
Well, they're not that great in football. I'm not hyped about this at all.
ACC?
Yeah, but they're the bottom of the ACC.
Well, we got Maryland. They're at the bottom of the Big Ten.
I guess a couple, yeah, but
coming this year.
Right, but I mean...
Would you rather see a bottom feeder in the Big Ten and a bottom feeder in the American? Or it's all the same?
Would I rather see...
a Maryland or a Memphis?
Well, we play Memphis all the time anyway. So, I mean, I would rather see a Power 5 opponent of some caliber, like South Carolina or Florida State.
See, I think Scott Frost doesn't want to see a Power 5 team of too much caliber.
Well, maybe not this year, but I think next year and the years, because we want to beat those guys. We need to beat those guys.
Yeah, but I think they like some of those.
Don't
nice
you think
wins.
when we played South Carolina at noon on ABC, don't you think that's what we needed here in Orlando? Don't you think that gave us some power that year?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
like
those
seeing
are the
those
games that we need to
schools
play.
too, but
those are the games that we need to play. We do not need to play North Carolina.
well, we'll see if the Texas game remains on the schedule.
That's
but
what I'm saying.
Next year, that month of September features Texas, Maryland, and Georgia Tech.
Right.
I don't think we end up playing our first 4 games against those 3 teams.
Well, those are contracted. So, I mean, I don't know of any time in the past where we haven't played those games.
Oh, yeah. Pittsburgh bought us out a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they
So-
still have to buy it out then.
Yeah,
I mean,
or
whatever,
something will
but-
change or they'll push it farther back. I just don't know that we'll ever end up seeing those games that are on the back end like that.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's
Like Stanford's 2019, North Carolina's 2020.
Well, we already fulfilled our part of the Stanford deal, so they either buy it out or they come and play. So.
But I do like the thinking that if we're in the Big 12, then it's it's a different ballgame with the quality of opponents week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, I still say that we need to play quality Power 5 opponents, even if we're, not in the Big 12. We need to have quality opponents. I guess, North Carolina wasn't bad a couple of years ago, or the last couple of years. I think they were involved in the ACC, in there someplace.
They've
I
also
think
had
they were,
quite a few academic scandals since.
Right. So, I mean, I would rather, when I think of North Carolina, I think of basketball, not football.
True.
So, I mean, it'd be great if the men's basketball team would play North Carolina. That'd be awesome, and that would fill that arena like it's never been filled before, probably. But then, so I don't know. I'm not horribly excited about that. But anyway, we go on.
All right, to set up the interview with Dennis Dodd, the Sports Betting Dime, the gambling site, is out with odds as to who might make it into the Big 12. UCF established as a 3-1 bet. Pretty good in that list of favorites, but a couple ahead. BYU 5-3, Houston 5-2, Cincinnati 5-2, and those, of course, are the names that you most often hear. Cal's listed at 10-1. I would not throw a dollar down on South Florida getting in to the Big 12.
Are they seriously betting on this stuff?
It's funny, that website, I went to that website, they bet on everything at that website.
So people are putting money on this
I don't know if people are, but anything you could think of to bet on, they have listed odds for.
That's ridiculous. All right, Night Nation, joining me right now on the phone is CBSSports.com senior college football writer. Everyone knows him, Dennis Dodd. Dennis, how you doing?
Andrew, how are you? I'm good.
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Last week, you put out an article about Scott Frost and Nike doing a thing at UCF. Let me know what you're thinking about that whole deal.
Well, it was really the fact that I think Scott Frost is one of 19 first-year head coaches in FBS. That's his most in at least the last 20 years. So you have to consider that. A lot of people are, whatever you want to call it, taking chances or hiring guys. I think Scott Frost falls in that category of Kirby Smart where, it made sense. Everybody was after him. But in terms of him, I think he didn't back away from the idea that UCF could become Oregon East with the Nike influence, with the offense, with Nike re-upping the apparel contract, I think in April. And all that means, because it's been not only a football revolution at Oregon, really a cultural revolution if you think about it. They have used Oregon to advance their brand and vice versa. So, just the hint or the possibility that could happen at UCF has to have people excited.
It absolutely does. It's very exciting for us. How familiar are you with the UCF program?
Pretty familiar, going back to Mike Kruchik, so yeah.
His son is actually on the team as a quarterback.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
no, I didn't know that.
Garrett Kruchek, that's awesome that he's there this year. And in the spring game, he actually came out as, I think, the third quarterback, and actually, I think, played the best out of everybody.
Wow.
Believe it or not. He was in junior college for a couple of years. He was just on that Netflix show that they were doing about Last Chance U or whatever, and he was on one of the opposing teams and pretty much was shredding them through the game, and then they came back in the end and won by, some huge amount. But anyway, yeah, so he's a part of the team. So do you think Scott Frost is a coach in waiting to go to, his alma mater, Nebraska?
I think it's a starter job for him. Whether he goes to Nebraska or not, I don't know. I raised that possibility with him. I said there's a lot of people in Nebraska that they can't wait for you to get there. And he said, well, that's very interesting because when the job was open, they didn't even call me. In other words, when Mike Riley came just a little bit more than a year ago. So I thought that was surprising. I thought he would at least get some nibbles from somebody at Nebraska, and they didn't. Maybe they didn't think he was ready. But obviously UCF came after him. He was very interested in a winless program. He saw the potential, and that's how he answered it. He said, I'm here. I want to win now, and Nebraska didn't call me.
So in the grand scheme of things, the biggest topic lately has been the Big 12 expansion. And UCF, at least in our eyes here in Central Florida, is, right in that conversation. What are your opinions about that?
As of this week, right now, I'm not even sure they're going to expand because I think anything you can write or say about that process is not wrong right now, because we're talking about a conference that the presidents went inside one day and decided to have a championship game. We're talking about a conference that on July 19th, the presidents went in and, let's have expansion. With really no consultation with the ADs. They don't need it, but the ADs kind of add athletic advice on that kind of stuff, but the presidents acted on their own. So I can't tell you how to read this, whether it's going to be 2, whether it's going to be 4, or whether it's going to be none. I mean, I know there's a faction that doesn't want any, and those letters begin with ESPN.
Is it a television market thing, or is it Florida recruiting thing? I mean, what would make the Big 12 want to take a school like UCF?
I think it's I don't think the teams matter, because outside of BYU, we're just talking about the same thing basically in varying degrees, because they're all group of 5 schools. BYU is the school that looks closest to a major college Power 5 program. They are acknowledged that way in the ACC and SEC, they count as a Power 5 opponent in those leagues that require schools to play at least one every year. So that's the highest designation they could get. I think, everything else, I think it's for the Big 12 expansion would be security. They would have 2 or 4 more teams in case any leave. And it's a money play. They could get up to $1 billion over the next 8 years of the terms of the contract if they admitted 4 teams. So in that sense, I really don't think it matters who they are, because there's not 1 or 2 or any that are a major market. There's not 1 or 2 or any that have the best football tradition, because there's a reason. I keep telling people if it was obvious for those schools, they'd be in a Power 5 league right now. And the Big 12 on July 19th decided to explore expansion. Who knows which way this will go.
We're both Kansas City guys, so you're on the Missouri side. I'm on the Kansas side.
I'm actually on the Kansas side. I'm in the suburbs.
Well, yeah, you live in but you went to Missouri and I went to Kansas. That's basically
yeah.
where I was going with that. The border war used to be really huge, and the Big 12 obviously was a huge part of that, with Kansas and Missouri being in the Big 8 and then the Big 12. Do you think when Missouri left and the other teams that left, Nebraska left, Texas A&M left, how much do you think that hurt the Big 12? Because people say that the Big 12 is not nearly what it was now that they only have 10 teams or whatever.
Well, in the short term, they had to get 2 new teams. In October, I think it was October of 2011, they invited TCU and West Virginia just to stay whole. And I think what you're referring to is that clause in the contract that allows the Big 12 to get paid equal shares for anybody they add from here on. I think what ESPN and Fox were thinking, well, in case the Big 12 is able to shake loose a Florida State or a Clemson or somebody like that, I don't think they ever thought that they'd be paying more money for Cincinnati, which, by the way, they already own the rights to. BYU, they already own the rights to. UCF, they already own the rights to.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Yeah, I mean, they go from, I'm sure in their offices they're going, why should we – tell us again why we should go from paying $1.8 million a year to an American Athletic Conference team to $30 million a year? Explain that to us, because we already own those rights. But they've signed the contract And in that contract, it states that they have to pay pro rata if the Big 12 expands.
This talk has been going on for quite a while, ever since the SEC and the Big Ten and everybody expanded, that there might be possibly in the future 4 16-team conferences. Would the Big 12 automatically be left out of that? And what would happen to those teams at that point that were in the Big 12?
Well, tell me who's in the Big 12 and I'll answer the question, because I think we're way down the road already. If the Big 12 goes to 14, you've already got 4 of the 5 Power Fives with 14 teams. The only one that doesn't is the Pac-12. So I think you're there. I think you're there if the Big 12 adds 4. Even if they don't, I think the only, in the next round of conference realignment, we're not going to end up with 64 teams. 64 teams can't play each other.
Right.
It's going to be about 100 at the highest level, I think, of FBS. And in that sense, I think the only school that would have to worry is probably a Baylor. I mean, I think the American would be in. I think the Mountain West would be in. Maybe a couple of others, but it would be about 100, and that's just my speculation. But whether it's the Big 12 or not, I think those schools would be in there. I think a Kansas State would be in there, Kansas and Iowa State. The only one I worry about is Baylor for obvious reasons, because what they've just gone through. I don't think anybody wants to, and we're talking about 8 years from now, but I don't think anybody wants to inherit a school that has diminished its brand and brought shame on itself 3 times with major scandals in 15 years. And then in a lot of ways, obfuscated and avoided the truth. But that's probably another show for another time. But I think everybody's going to be under the umbrella. It's just a matter of where they are, what conference they're in. And even then, I don't even know if it matters. I think the next round of realignment is going to be caused by technology. It won't be so much which conference you're in, who's more valuable. It's what kind of deal you can get. We haven't even realized over the top yet. Netflix, Hulu, there's been speculation that the Big 12 doesn't care if the ESPN and Fox are upset at bringing new teams in, because they'll be able to negotiate with new partners in 8 years. But again, that's probably another show for another time. Well,
I mean, there has been a lot of cable cutting and not as nearly as many people, I don't think, probably have ESPN that used to, So, I mean, even Amazon is trying to get into it. Twitter's trying to get into it, to doing, college sports. And, I mean, more power to them, I guess. The more people that can be involved, I guess, the better coverage that there would be, as far as I'm concerned, or the more coverage there would be. Maybe not better, but what about BYU? I guess some people are upset about BYU's values and getting into the Big 12. The LGBT community is a little bit, I guess, a bunch of people are petitioning the Big 12 not to include them because of their Mormon values. What's that all about?
Well, you're referencing a story on FoxSports.com where I think 25 groups representing LGBT values wrote the Big 12 and urged it not to take in BYU because of their honor code, which is, I think this is right, is against homosexual behavior, not necessarily having homosexual feelings, but engaging in homosexual acts. Now, I'm probably digging too deep for a lot of people, but I think that's real. I think that's something the Big 12 and BYU is going to have to get around before they do that, because look, we've already seen the NBA take the All-Star game out of North Carolina because of their laws. We've seen a football team in Missouri threaten to boycott and not play because of perceived racial injustice at Missouri. How is this different? Is the NCAA going to take events out of Utah because of the growing pressure from LGBT? Are teams going to and I'm just spitballing here. Are teams going to boycott because they don't want to play in Utah or play BYU because of this? I'm going to say it would come to this, but there are issues that would, not necessarily this one. So I think it's got bigger ramifications than even the story itself. I mean, it shows the power the student athlete has these days, and I think the power of the street, the power of groups to have their voices heard, whether right or wrong.
Yeah, I think
they do have to be heard. I don't know how this is going. I know BYU stance right now. They're saying visiting athletes. There's going to be no impact on visiting athletes, and every one of the students that comes into our school knows about that honor code, embraces that honor code, and knows about it, and comes here knowingly. So, it's their rules they live by. I don't know if the Big 12 and BYU can get past this.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because we were on the Big 12's topic, and, it's interesting how these things are starting to play into college sports and, I guess life in general now more than ever, that it would come into this context of the conversation of expansion and all that.
Yeah, and let me say this. I've seen it referred to as, this is a crackdown on religious freedom. In no way, shape, or form is this a crackdown on religious freedom. No one is saying BYU or Mormons in general can't practice their religion the way they see fit. But everything any of us does has consequences. Now, whether you agree with those consequences or those acts is a different story. And I will say this. Knowing what little I know about the Mormon faith, they're not going to budge on this. The church is way more important than one point in time joining an athletic conference to play football.
Right.
You can see that right now because they chose to go independent.
Absolutely.
And part of the reason they chose to go independent is to put those football games, or some of those football games, on BYU TV, their worldwide network, to spread the word of the Mormon faith. So
right.
I guarantee you they're not going to budge on this.
Yeah, and they don't play games on Sunday, obviously, or weekdays, I believe.
It's a Sabbath in the Mormon faith, yes, but there's ways around that. I think this is a much bigger issue.
Right, absolutely. All right, what do you think about the American Conference in general and UCF's chances of coming back and doing well?
Oh, I think UCF will definitely come back and do well. I think it was, it was the end of George's career. They wanted him to step down. He said at the end of the year, and he said, no way. If I announce I'm going to retire, I'll lose the team. So he just left right then. That was his prerogative. But we've seen the highs of UCF football, and they're pretty recent, and they're pretty high. What was it, 3 years ago they beat Baylor, 2 years ago?
Yep, 3 years ago now.
We know it can come back. We know it can come back. And I think with a young, aggressive coach, it will come back. And I think that American champion for the time being, or, until someone knocks them off, will be a New Year's Six participant. They will go to a New Year's Six bowl. The American is better than the Mountain West right now until further notice. And it is kind of the Power 5.5 at the American without the automatic designation of playoff competition. So, no, I think both will do well.
Dennis, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking time. I'm sure your schedule is busy. How can people read your stuff? Where can they find you on Twitter, all that stuff?
It's real easy. CBSSports.com is the URL, and I'm on Twitter at Dennis Dodd CBS.
Right on. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay,
and
thank
if you ever make it down here to Central Florida, possibly for a UCF game, you let me know, and I will. I'll make sure your experience is good. All right.
Would love to. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Be well.
There are so many ways to connect with the UCF Knightline podcast.
Check out our website at ucfnightlinepodcast.com for recruit spotlights, archived episodes, and more.
You can like us on Facebook at Knightline Podcast.
Talk with us on Twitter at UCF_Knightline.
Listen whenever and wherever you are on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, or TuneIn.
Call us with your questions or comments at 407-205-7427.
Go Knights!
Charge on. All right, so I guess speaking of CBS Sports, it's out with its preseason rankings, and it's not so great for us on there.
No foam fingers for 117.
Yeah, 117 out of 128. I guess that's, based on last year's schedule, last year's winning record. That's fine, whatever. I believe that we'll be a lot better than that. So for the rest of the American, I guess Houston came in at 14th. The Cows at 30th, which I think is ridiculous. They've got one player. Navy 36, Temple 46, Memphis 60, Tulsa 66, Cincinnati 73, Yukon 76, Tulane down in our area with 104, East Carolina 109, and SMU with 110. So that leaves us last in the American.
Projected last.
Well, I really hope that that's not what happens. It may be, whatever. If it does, I guess we'll look forward to the year after this year. But
After coming off of 0-12, how optimistic, though, can you be? I mean, everybody we've talked to and heard from saying, boy, if they could get to the 6 wins in the bowl game, I mean, I think it's realistic that you're going to project them in the bottom tier until they prove that they can adjust to the new coach and the new offense and the new defense.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be better than that. I really think that these people are being a little bit nearsighted and not looking at the past and our previous years. The team that played last year was not an 0-12 team. I think Tom James said that earlier. I think Phil Steele said that. It was a fluke. I don't know why we would be ranked that low. I don't understand. So I don't think
just
that's the way it's going to turn out.
I think you're right.
And I think all these people are wrong. And, UCF, let's go prove them that they're wrong and, be up there in the top part of the American. May not happen this year, but I hope it does.
Hey, it's back. Knights in the NFL. 21 former Knights in an NFL training camp, some whose jobs are, of course, secure, like quarterback Blake Bortles up in Jacksonville, wide receiver Brandon Marshall with the Jets. Others, of course, hoping to impress during preseason, which has gotten underway, and make those final NFL rosters. However, did you see this, Andrew? Season over for one former Knight. Wide receiver Rennell Hall broke his fibula Friday night, out for the season.
No pun intended, but that kid cannot get a break.
No.
Seriously. I posted that on Facebook or something, and I didn't want people to think that I was making light of it because it's not funny. But seriously, he just has the worst luck, which is totally a bummer because I thought that this was really going to be his year that he could maybe do something.
And he did impress so far in camp with the Browns. And you thought maybe he might hook onto the final roster. So
anything with Storm Johnson for Tampa
still on the roster, still has a chance.
I'm sure he probably. I don't know if he got to play or not. I didn't.
I didn't check. The only one I paid any attention to was Rennell Hall. So I didn't. Right. I didn't notice the Bucks one.
This is your Knights planner for the week. Men's soccer has a pair of home exhibition matches Tuesday, August 16th against Tampa. Kickoff at 6 p.m. at the UCF Soccer Complex. Florida Southern comes to town Sunday, August 21st, also with a 6 p.m. start.
Annual kickoff luncheon for football set for Friday, August 19th at CFE Arena. Lunch and football talk served up at 11:30 a.m.
And women's soccer kicks off the season with a pair of tough road matches Friday, August 19th at North Carolina and Sunday, August 21st at Duke.
FanFest out at the Bright House takes place Saturday, August 20th, begins at 6. Free, best of all free. Meet the players, get autographs, rev up for the home season opener on September 3.
And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. Welcome to new assistant men's tennis coach Felipe Odeshorn, who comes to the Knights after a season-long stint as a volunteer assistant coach with Virginia, where he helped the Cavs win the NCAA National Championship.
Couple of women's soccer notes. UCF jumped out to an early 1-0 lead against Miami. Canes rallied back, though, in the second half for the 2-1 exhibition win at the UCF Soccer Complex. Junior Christine Creighton with UCF's lone goal. Meantime, the Americans' preseason poll of coaches is out. Women's soccer projected in a third-place tie with Cincinnati, trailing the Cows, and the favorite to win the league this year will be UConn. Senior Carol Rodriguez and redshirt junior Kayla Adamek named to the preseason all-conference squad.
Preseason practice is underway for volleyball and men's soccer.
UCF announced a partnership with iHeartMedia to provide broadcasts of football and men's basketball games, as well as some baseball. Available on the iHeartRadio app, UCF officially named Mark Daniels as Director of Broadcasting and announced Gary Paris is returning as a color analyst on the radio broadcast, replacing former offensive coordinator Charlie Taff.
Oh boy, I'm going to listen to that.
Hope that Big 12 inclusion is not based upon the quality of the color analyst.
Horrible. Olympic Watch, the U.S. behind UCF's own Phil Dalhausser. Advanced to Monday's quarterfinals in men's beach volleyball. They'll face Brazil. Meantime, former Knights goalkeeper Aileen Reese got a clean sheet for her native Brazil against South Africa. That's going to do it for another edition of the UCF Knightline podcast.
Yeah, don't forget, we're going to be live on Sunday, September 4th, 7 o'clock on Facebook as well. We're looking forward to that.
All right, thanks for listening. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trace Trylko. Go Knights!
Charge on.
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold, charge right through the heart. Victory is our cry. BSUTO, or Y to